I'm Master Xeon1001 and you're watching BoxCutter TV. Hello everyone. In this demo, I'll be going over the process that I used in creating this particular solenoid. Solenoid is something that I covered in a previous video about getting started with solenoid. In this video, we'll just be talking about some of the newest features that have come to HardOps and BoxCutter in these latest micro updates that are out as of this recording, as well as go through the process of creating this particular asset, discussing the creation of drivers briefly, and just kind of having a candid talk going through BoxCutter. This particular asset, I was able to consolidate all the drivers into sharing the same settings across all the modifiers for both render and viewport. So over the course of this video, I'll be showing you that as well. And the material, of course, is just a blank material. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. All right, so getting started, one of the first things that's been added new to this version is if we bring in a curve, you can press Control tilde and you'll notice that there's now a curve helper area where you can adjust curve settings. This wasn't there before, or it was, but it might have been malfunctioning. We'll go ahead and delete this curve and bring in a text object. And if we look at this text object and we press Control tilde, you can see that there's now a text option in the Control tilde helper. So you'll be able to go in here and adjust your font, use a little pop-up window to change it. Of course, because this pop-up window is a pop-up window, you have to go in and manually update things yourself. Similar to the material issue, it propagates, but just know that text is now supported in the Control tilde helper. Thanks to Phoenix55 for pointing that out. The next thing is that mod scroll in HardOps, which is located under Q, now works for all selected objects. So if we have everything selected, we choose modifier toggle, we can see that all the modifiers are toggled off, allowing us to see the true form, and then we can toggle them back on. And then for troubleshooting reasons, we can scroll through the order. I do have plans for expanding on these things even more in the future and even consolidating them, but this is just a start. So Control N, I'm just going to make a new file. And I want to show a new option that's in the Alt-X mirror. So as you know, pressing Alt-X will bring up the mirror. If you shift click on bisect, you'll now turn it yellow, which will now activate something called bisect only. This is something I've been pestering AR about forever, but it's finally been added. So if we click on an axis, you can see that only one side is kept. In fact, if we delete this and we bring in a cube, we can Alt-X and you see that it's still on actual bisect. So we hold shift, we can now actually bisect on multi-axes, keeping only this piece for us to mess with procedurally. Of course, we can shift click this, turn this back, and mirror this over 9 ways to Sunday while keeping everything non-destructive. Not recommended for Boolean operations, but I'll be showing more about why that's such a big deal later. Another thing that was added to this latest update of HardOps is, we'll just do a whole bunch of Boolean cuts. Gotta love that fade, right? So we'll just do a couple of cuts here, and then we'll bring all the cuts back. So now if you have the latest version of HardOps, pressing Shift G, you'll have additional options added to the select group menu, where you can actually choose certain things, like if you want to select things that have the S status of bool shape, right? Which is anything that's a Boolean. You can select everything based off of that S shape status. Of course, we want to extend this idea to something called late parent and extend that into BoxCutter, but we'll be going into that more in the future. So we'll just make a new file here, and just starting off roughly, we'll just talk about some of the latest changes to the latest update of BoxCutter. So first and foremost, under input, there's now an option for enable top bar. We received a lot of complaints from people who are actually not using the top bar and would prefer that it not exist. So in the event that you want to just press Alt W, get in and just start box cutting, without any sort of top bar popping up whenever you jump in with Alt W. That is now an option, even though I don't recommend it. You can always bring back the top bar by just right clicking up in the top. You can in fact right click object mode and just under header show tool settings and bring back the top bar. Also, if the top bar isn't showing, we did add an option in hard ops under the Q menu under settings to show the top bar. So in the event that you're unable to get that toolbar back, you can get the top bar to show up whenever you need it. So continuing on, the next thing that was added is a toggle for AccuCut laser cut. So with the last update of BoxCutter in 7.1.4, we added a new AccuCut system to the laser cut, which actually made it more accurate. So if I trigger the laser cut by just drawing without extrusion, you can see that the cut is actually form fitted to the scale of the object. So if we scale this up and we apply the scale, you can see that it continues to be form fitted. Previously, laser cuts would be offshot quite a bit. So by toggling this off, you can actually have it overshoot just like classic. So if you're kind of heavy-handed like I used to be, where you actually just need it to shoot off into a little bit of infinity in order to have additional control, you can now adjust that in the behavior panel where we were showing it right here. However, AccuCut laser cut is generally on by default because it does result in a more accurate laser cut. And with that, another requested feature has been added. So because accurate laser cut's here and it's enabled, we can go under shape and we see that depth is now a parameter. So if we go under here, we click 0.2, we'll actually just make a new file and just double check we're at 0.2 with AccuCut on. And if we draw a shape and we don't extrude, we can see that this has been cut exactly to 0.2. And so by doing this, you can get a really interesting workflow going of just quickly cutting in rounded divots, which is something that I use to accent hard surface models. However, it is important to mention that hotlining is a thing because we're accurately cutting it to the same depth as the previous cut. You'll notice that in this case where I'm cutting exactly where another cut has already happened, we will have an issue geometrically because of something called a hotline. So this is probably one of the biggest issues that happens to people using booleans, is the mesh will hotline because the mesh is actually sitting on top of something, causing z-fighting, which just doesn't play well with booleans at this time. You can see that the moment I begin playing with the scale on the z-axis, that as long as it's not precisely there, it's fine. But the moment that you overshoot it, so this is something to keep in mind whenever you're using laser cut depth. But that is one of the larger things that's been added to this small update to BoxCutter. Another thing is that one pretty important bug was fixed, which I'll be showing in the second part of this video. So let's actually just start over and make a new file here, and we'll just jump into the thick of it. So I received a comment on Twitter that, I haven't done a video in a while where I just kind of talk about the state of things. So I wanted to do a kind of a public demo where I would play with something that y'all probably already know about, the Cylinoid. The Cylinoid is a nice way to go through and test the tools. So starting out, I'm just going to insert a plane, and we're going to press Alt-X, and I'm going to shift-click bisect in order to turn it into actual bisect. And we're going to just cut the plane in half. And because the plane's been cut in half, I'm just going to press Alt-W and jump into Hops tool, because I just don't use Hops tool enough. And we'll just click on spit screw, and we'll control right-click because that's been changed. And that'll bring up the specific modifier. While looking at the axis, I can hold control and scroll the wheel in order to change the axis, so we'll change that to Y. One of the next things I want to show you is that we could select this vertice and in edit mode, control click bevel, or just click bevel, and we'll get something like this, right? And so I'll roll the segments down to 1, which still looks kind of weird, and that's because the normal is on, the normal modification is on. So we press M, we could actually turn that off, but I'm just going to leave it on and show you that by pressing 1, you can actually adjust the auto smooth and actually turn the normal off. We've tried to make one kind of a one-stop shop for getting your bevel correct while you're in the modal if you're trying to jump through presets, which I'll be going into that more on that later. So at this point on the solenoid, I like to press Alt V and look at the wireframe. And you know, this tutorial isn't even a tutorial. This is, you know, more of a chat. So, you know, I expect plenty of comments saying that, you know, this was a terrible tutorial and inadequate, and I failed to explain this and that. So continuing on with that in mind, knowing that that's going to happen, we're just going to just keep modeling. So I'm going to bring in this cube here, and we're going to move it up front. And before I bold this in, we're going to press Control tilde and make sure decimate sort is not on. Right now, we're in control of things. We don't want to sort the decimate, but we do want to bold this difference on the front of a cube, which bold this cube on the front of our solenoid, which might seem a little odd, but this cube will come in handy for times where we will need to basically force geometry in. This was one of the things I wanted to show in the previous solenoid video, because it's a level of control that you can have by, you know, just putting the loop cuts on your cutters and having it cut that geometry in. You can actually have supporting geo, which makes it easier to use bevels in the future. So this time I'm going to control click bevel in order to add a new bevel at 30 degrees. And we're ready to get started. So I'm going to press Alt W, start BoxCutter. And, you know, with every solenoid, I like cutting one of these little box slips in there. I like to press B and round it out. In the latest version of BoxCutter, you'll notice that we removed the Q bevel dot. That thing's been driving me crazy. There's a different direction that we kind of want to go in with dots that we'll be doing in the future. This update is pretty much intended to be a like kind of an intermediate update, kind of a finale to 7.14 while we work on 7.15, which we've been working on the whole time. It would have been out a long time ago, but we went for a rather ambitious idea that's taking longer than usual to fulfill. But once it's fulfilled, it will be fulfilled. So backing up here, I'm going to press Control tilde to bring up a modifier stack, and we're going to remove the last modifier. So the modifier of mirror is preferable to bisect, and symmetry, of course, is a one and done symmetry solution. You know, a lot of the time that I'm dealing with people talking about Boolean issues, the number one issue is not having manifold geometry. Even though this thing's built from a spin modifier, everything's pretty manifold. And the modifier form of mirror is new to 2.8, and it's just a superior way of mirroring that results in keeping the mesh manifold and makes it just easier to calculate Booleans. So, you know, I can't stress enough that that is the secret of me getting so far with all of these cuts. So one of the things I've been complaining a lot internally is kind of some of the speed issues I've been having with 2.8 over time. However, it has been pointed out by people close to me that, you know, with 2.8, we are stacking more modifiers than ever. You know, in 2.79, we kind of just didn't care. Also, you can see that, you know, when it comes to using BoxCutter and 2.8, that it's just different. You know, there's a lot of classic features that people are always requesting that we put back, and, you know, believe me, it's in the works. Just takes a moment to rethink it all. And also, everything's always having to be figured out. You know, right now, BoxCutter is in a pretty delicate state. Like, you know, all these comments about snapping and whatnot definitely are something that we keep up on the whiteboard. and our point of discussion. We could release something slightly inadequate, but I just don't think it's worth it. I think it's better to just wait for the next version, and then you guys will see exactly what we're cooking. But at this time, just know that we could drop something pretty nice, but it just wouldn't be nice enough. There's a level of proxy, a level of quality that proxy tries to put out there to you guys. So I mean, even these speed issues that we hear about with Unix or Linux, and also the Mac saga. The Mac saga really kind of took it out of us. For anyone using a Mac now, you're definitely fine. But there was a time when things were just a little bit more unstable there. But as you see, as I'm adding cuts here, I'm able to use Q and object scroll to bring back this control cube and add loops as needed in order to just have support geo where I need it. In fact, right there, I kind of lose a little bit. And the reason I lose a little bit is because this cut here is an interior T-thick that kind of cuts away from the top soil. So if we select this, press Q, like I said, this is going to be the worst tutorial ever. Right before I came in here to record, my girlfriend offered me a shot of vodka because, we're doing that now. Just to keep warm in the winter, So we press 1. It's not there. 2. Almost there. 3. Let's see, is that it? I don't think so. In fact, I don't even think that this is trimming away from the top. So let's bring this back and take a look at this. What I think has happened is the decimate got moved. I can just tell you guys. 6 cents. What happened is we didn't go here and turn on sort decimate because the sync of the sort system isn't there. Also, that'll be one of the big surprises of the next update. We can spoil that one, is there is a new sort system coming. Very popular request will be fulfilled. The next level of sort is something I'm very excited to show whenever it's complete. However, at this time we can only just talk about it and play with the existing sort. So now you see that now that the decimate sort is exactly where we need it, I can go here and make sure I'm on vertice snap, go to circle and grab that vert and bring a little happy little vertice in there. So this shape should have kept its modifiers. Let's actually undo that and take a look here. We actually want to keep the spin on the keep modifiers. And the keep modifiers actually pertains to the cutters when it comes to BoxCutter. I never said this video was specifically going to be about hops or BoxCutter. It's going to be me making a solenoid actually. So we get this cut in here and it's not really looking very good. Let's take a local mode and troubleshoot this. And I like to troubleshoot by pressing Alt V and looking at the face orientation. And we can see that, face orientation is just not good. So we come out of local mode, we grab the cutter and we choke it. We're like, hey, what's wrong with you? And it looks good again. So that's just the cost of keeping our screw live, is possibly having our normals getting flipped. But it looks like for the most part, it's going to be fine. So we select this, press Q, object scroll, bring it back, and we have our screw live. And you're probably wondering, hey, why is the screw live? Why do you even care if the screw's live? Well, let's take this. Let's also turn off blue dabba dee dabba die. And we'll turn off face orientation. And on this screw, I'm going to right click and choose copy data path. And I've been experimenting with this lately of just right clicking and choosing to add driver. And I could just tell you that this object's name is plain. Just trust me, I've done this exercise like 100 times. So we'll just type in plane, and there it is. So we want to use single property, and we'll just paste what we copied a moment ago, and voila. So now whatever this is set to, the cutter will be set to. And so, you know, always play with an idea first. I always talked about how I wanted bisect to be a thing, and now it's a thing. But, you know, we're going to copy the driver we made, and then object scroll our way back in time to this one. Just paste driver. And so now if we lower our segment, you can see that on the circle, the segments are lowered. And we can also probably do the same thing to this thing. Let's locate it. You know, let's just have some fun late night. You know, this thing's not even going to be fine. Let's just get rid of it. Which modifier was that? It was this one, the one in red. Goodbye. So earlier today, I was playing in a Smash Bros tournament. Got beat up pretty bad. So, I mean, I shouldn't even be doing this video. I should be practicing Smash Brothers, but really I should be doing this video because I haven't done a video in a while. But you can see as I roll the modifier up and down what I'm playing at, you know, which I think is pretty cool. You know, by the end of this, we'll be rocking 128 and things will be looking pretty good. And also that edge loop is just way too close. So can we play with that by moving a smidgen and move on with our lives? So by activating MatCat view, you know, one day I should just do a drinking game out of this where I just take a shot for every time a cut doesn't go the right way. But then again, you know, it's me cutting here, so these cuts always work out. Right here, I've discovered that just kind of working this particular surface will make it easier on the normals. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure if you're making a solenoid, you're getting to the point where you're like, hey, my normals just look freaking awful. And really, that's all about how you section it. You know, some of these choices are design. Other ones are, you know, forced upon me. So while we're talking about, you know, hops and BoxCutter, let's talk about blank material. We'll press Alt-M, just grab a blank material, and let's see what we win in the lottery. So we go over to render, and we press Alt-V and turn off wireframe. And this is our material. So, you know, blank material was added. God, what is making this take so long? Blender crash? What is this? Oh my God. All right, so if this thing doesn't respond, this video has to be over. Oh, okay, never mind. Maybe my mouse was malfunctioning again. So I'll press 5, go into perspective mode, and we see that the material that we got here was probably a little bit on the white side, if you ask me. Also, seems like everything gets a clear coat, but this time it didn't, so we will give it one. And just kind of play with our clear coat, see what we're getting here. And this is what we have so far. So really nothing major, nothing complex. We gotta keep cutting this until it's cool. You know, not recommending that to anyone at all out there. No cutting. So we will just slice this off by turning that into a slice. But you know what'd look cool would be a little notch there. Be a little notch there. Right there. Just something random. And then we'll locate the screw on this. And we'll just paste that driver. So as we lower our screw segments, we also lower it on the slices. That, as long as that driver's in our clipboard, we're just going to take advantage of it. So, you know, I'm also going to cut this piece off right here. And let's paste that driver. And you can see that it gets a little faster as you start cutting. Like the more successful your cuts are, the better your netting is for supporting what you're trying to do here. Also, my headset just turned off because I'm just listening to music through it and actually recording myself through the desktop microphone. So right here, we're just going to draw a cut. Yeah, I just realized I've been going through this video and I'm hardly using any new features. It's because, you know, it takes so long for me to psychologically even come around to this, even the stuff I request over and over and over. Like, I'm like, listen, guys, we need this feature yesterday. I'm getting mail about it. I hate getting mail about it. Especially when people are right and they have points. But just know that our solution will be one for the record. So you can just tell that that cutter didn't work out. So please bring that back. One of the things I wanted to put in BoxCutter was something called last cutter. But in a way, we kind of realized that using Q and object scroll and scrolling backwards is pretty much the same as last cutter. In fact, it's better than last cutter because it's like every cutter. So with these holes, you know, we'll just have a little fun. You know, I could just shift A, throw on a plane. And this thing's halfway sunk into this model, so it doesn't matter. We'll just pull this out. You know, use 2D bevel because that's what shows up in the Q menu when you have a plane selected. And we'll press Q again and control click on Smart Apply to convert it to a curve. So I was hoping that one of the things we'd be able to add to this update would be the ability to do that via edit mode, but that'll just have to wait for the future. We do have some big things planned for BoxCutter and Hops tool. All right, I actually want to get rid of what's in the back there because that's just not visually appealing. You know, it shows up there, so, and we'll Alt M, give it the same material. If we go in render mode, this is kind of what we have so far. So, you know, nothing major, just a little solenoid, nothing to see here. So let's bring out Ngon, you know, big boy Ngon. Ngon's so great, but it doesn't support multiple shapes yet being drawn in the same iteration. So as you can guess, you know, we're always thinking about, you know, what next to go for with these tools. Like, you know, ever since I started taking it more seriously, there's like whiteboards all over the room and throughout the apartment, post-it notes of just various things to keep up with when it comes to these tools. So, I mean, no matter what room I'm in, I'm always discussing hard ops and BoxCutter. You know, it's probably time to get a crazy tattoo of it. But I'm not that type of guy. So continuing on, as you can see, when it comes to the sort of stuff, you're just being random and just cutting things out, recalling your cutters, modifying them, seeing what works. Like something like that works. But you know what also works is giving it the same driver. So every time I slice something off, I need to remember to, you know, give it the same driver. You can also see right here, the normals just don't look so good, you know. So that probably tells me that I should probably go in solid mode and just do a little cut right here. You know, this is why I get the downvotes, is because I will do a cut like that will fix the shading, and that's its only purpose, is to fix the shading. I mean, I'm sorry that I made that choice, but you know, sometimes you just gotta I guess fix the shading, you know. So I've also been working on this other new idea. Like, you know, I think you know, if you watch any of my classic material, I've talked about getting drunk vertices home. Well, forget that. Let's talk about rewriting the time stream, which is what I'm actually doing with geometry now. It's a little more interesting than it sounds, but it's something I've been experimenting with. You know, geometry rebuilding after a Boolean operation and solving things is, you know, another part of the battle. And I try to, you know, not sugarcoat that is a thing, you know, throughout my videos by showing the process. In fact, you know, if you watched a helmet video, that video is nothing but a, what the hell happened to this mesh? Just looks so weird. It's like blue, but it's green. Oh. Alright, sorry. And also, did we put a driver on the circle? Yes, we did. So that means if we select the main shape here and we lower the segments, it lowers them on everything else, which kind of looks a little crazy, right? Like, it looks like kind of wavy. But this is pretty much what solenoids come down to for me now. You know, these are like little shape studies, you know. Back in the day, I was playing with cubes, but now, you know, the cube game has got a little crowded and people take it a little more seriously than I did nowadays, I guess. I mean, you know, still can't cut a cube better, but there's definitely more to it than a cube. I mean, you definitely don't want to be raising up people to only cut cubes. You want them to vary it up, create other shapes, get parametric with it. So, oh god, I should have even canceled that. We'll try it again. Bada bing, bada boom. We'll cut one here. Just a happy little shape in there. Just make a detail where there is none. And you can also see that I don't even need the guidance cube for this, because unless I see serious bevel issues, that's just telling me to move it back. I'm just making it interesting for whenever you look at it in a render. You know, if it's all boring, it's just gonna look boring. But if we add some you know, visual flair to it, make our day a little better. So select this shape. We're just going to bring a shape in here. T. One of the things written on the whiteboard is having dots for inset and T thick, which is why we're wanting to consolidate the dots. Like, you know, we definitely want to come up with some sort of single left click solution that requires not a single hotkey. But also we need to further refine the hotkey version, because the more fluent you are with BoxCutter, the easier time you're going to have, of course. But you know, you can definitely just draw shapes, press tab, and drag these little circles and have fun that way. But really, you can get a lot farther by just dragging shapes, pressing B and O, and extruding and using custom cutter and getting in there with the more advanced features. So I have been also working a lot on the documentation lately to try to make it more beneficial to you, to users. You can see at this point that also I'm cutting a really inaccurate circle right there. Like, what is wrong with me? We have snap dots. Why am I doing that? I just don't know why I'm even going there. So let's look at this in the render. It's looking kind of mediocre. I'm gonna press Alt M and let's roll the gambit one more time and see what kind of blank material we have here. And that material is actually a winner. You know, I know you're probably looking at it and you're like, hey, that looks kind of like the last material, but it's not. I could tell that one's different. So we're gonna scale up the circle. Yeah, so when I played in the Smash Bros tournament, I didn't win like a single fight. You know, I got beat so bad. I'm pretty sure Trey was like, why did I bring you? It was just terrible. So gotta pick a different main character. No, not even. You know, the controls weren't even set up for me, so I wasn't able to really get in a zone with the game. So with this shape made, I'm just going to control click this, and we'll alt M, assign the same material. And that's how you put the hook on these little solenoids. You know, because it's a curve, we don't have the ability to put an array on it, but I was just asking for that. I was like, you know, we need to definitely make sure B width and, you know, curve stuff, all that, all our modifiers that are capable of working on curves work with curves. So, you know, coming to the future. So continuing on, we'll just narrow that one down. And you can see that with these exercises, you just kind of get in there and have fun with it. In fact, I'll Shift C. We'll throw in a plane RX90, bring it over here. And all we're doing is just putting it here, bringing this out, extruding it down here, EX, and we'll just delete that single vert, which leaves us just this interesting edge. And on this edge, we'll use 2D bevel, which will round it out. Really just evening these shapes out in this area. And you can guess what happens next. What we do next to this simple edge may shock you. Control click, turn to a curve. And someday, you know, might do a little material assignment action in there on those curves too. It's so jarring sometimes, but you know, can't be overkilling with some of these features. Got to keep it accessible. But I hope there's some of you out there that are actually tuning into all these micro updates and utilizing all these things, because I am writing about them in the documentation as well. So if you're tuning in occasionally, or even asking the right question, you'll see the docs get updated in real time. So looking at this, I'm just kind of judging. It's like, what else can we put on this? You know, it'd be cool would be an audio gauge. You know, I didn't do an audio gauge in a rehearsal, but let's just do it. Just a random audio gauge. So we'll just cut it here, make our territory known. One day I'm going to show you guys why I make all these solenoids. I mean, you just stick them into leg joints or arm joints of a robot. It's just instant detail. You save yourself like 7 hours. Like, these solenoids are great. You can scale it up, put a bunch of little mini solenoids around it, create a quick sci-fi environment. Have this thing be carried by a person. Once you start adjusting the scale by putting micro elements around it, turn this thing into a reactor. I mean, solenoids just have so many possibilities. So continuing on, we're just going to take this plane and we'll put it right here. And you're not going to like the way that I make this audio bar. I'm just giving you a heads up. Shift A, path. The first thing I do with these paths is I hold control and move them over like 2 units, because for me it's just weird for a path to not start in the place it's supposed to. The next thing is I will bring this up, we'll scale it down, and we'll apply the scale just for less weirdness later. Let's dissolve these points in the middle. So basically, you know, it's just a curve. And so for this thing, we'll array it. Jeez. You know, let's actually apply the scale. You know, unapplied scale is like the #1 cause of forest fires, you guys. So creating accidental booleans here from misclicking. And we'll just actually set this to fit the curve of NURBS path. So we can't see the curve, but I can feel it. And let's get out of full screen. That error is supposed to be gone. I'll be checking into that after the video, but I was already kind of bracing myself for it to be there. But, you know, whenever it comes to errors, gotta roll with the punches. So we have our curve, and that's all our curve's gonna do, is just go up and down. So we can Control H, and if we put a hook to a new object, we now have this empty that guides the top of the curve. So, you know, I'm listening to music right now, so it's like, you know. Well, I'm not listening to the Batman song, but you get the point. So, getting out of full screen, we're going to select this empty, change it to a sphere, because spheres look better. And what we'll do is, you know, we're on frame 1, we'll press I for location. We'll jump to frame 10. And set a frame I for location, and we're only moving one axis. So let's delete keyframes out of both sections. So let's go to this frame, delete single keyframes. All right, let's try it again. So right here, we're on this frame, and for frame number 10, we're just going to lower this and actually insert single keyframe. And by simplifying it, we can go over to the animation tab. Let's see how easy that'll be. Geez, what are you using animation for now, Blender? I guess this isn't for my type of animation. So we'll just make a duplicate one. And I'm guessing we need to probably look at the F curves to do this. You know, you go off the reservation, you got to figure this stuff out on the fly now. So we want to go to modifiers, and we want to do noise. And if we take a look at this, we can actually see that it's quite random, but it's not really random enough. If it's going negative, it's kind of, Actually, you know what we could do is put some genuine limits on this. And then we could turn it off for just a moment and see what we were at on each frame. So if we look at this one, 0.74 is the max, and 0.34, so 0.74 to 0.34. Let's try that. Let's turn on noise. .74, 0.34. Probably backwards. 0.34, 0.74, 0.34, 0.74. Nope. Let's actually turn these off for a moment. And what we want to do is modify the maximum Y. So the lowest it can go is that, and the highest it can go is, let's see, right here. We want to add more scale. Ta-da! And we have created it. So, you know, I was worried that I was going off the reservation. You know, I used to do tech support back in the day, And they used to call it out of scope whenever you would help customers do stuff you weren't supposed to, you know. So this is me going out of scope. But, you know, got the customer's issue resolved. You can now get off the telephone, and I can go on to the next telephone call, which will be exactly a repeat of this exact telephone call. So we will take this and actually mirror it below using modifier. And so this is like our solenoid, right? But, you know, it's kind of slow, but that's not bad. You know, it's slow, it's animated, it's real time, but God, it's hot in here. It's always so hot. All right, I took a moment, get something to drink because I was getting hot. It could have been a shot of vodka. Just one shot did me in. All right, so selecting this, I realized after walking away that we really need to take this thing to Box City. Like, I must be having a flu. There's so much more we can do with this, even if it's getting a little bit slower. You know, it doesn't matter. So we're just going to give some of these things back. The first material that we got in the lottery. No materials left behind. Except we definitely don't want to take that one like that. You know, sometimes I look at these T-thick cuts and I wonder if, you know, we should add the ability to convert a T-thick into a slice later. Just one of those things I contemplate. Coming soon. You know, it's still on the clipboard. Oh God. Oh God, it crashed it. Jeez. So I did not save. So this is one of those situations where we're going to go in and we're going to choose recover autosave. And we're going to, you know, reverse the sorting. I guess it's not that way. And I'm thinking it's this file. No. Recover autosave. Maybe it's this file. Nope. Ooh, Blender, come on, you gotta help me here. I didn't save that file because I believed in you, man. Are you serious, Blender? You are trolling me. Don't save that. Oh, here we go. We're back in the game. I was panicking for a moment inside. You know, this would have been one of those videos y'all never would have seen because this would have been the end of it. Also, how far back? Jeez, kind of lost a little progress here, but could be worse. Could have lost 18. So we will pull this back. And just take our slice out again. You know, I bet it's slicing an Eevee. And also being an Eevee. You know, so many things we just take for granted now. Like being able to cut at the same time as rendering. You know, and then we have the nerve to say that, you know, Blender's kind of slow. And here I am, you know, cutting in render mode. But sometimes, you know, I'm not always cutting in render mode. I mean, I wouldn't do that when it mattered. You know, sometimes I have my mouse hanging on just a little bit longer than I'd like it, but you know, we really need to save this file. Really can't be playing games anymore. You know, previously it was a Jesus take the wheel, but because of one blank material being slapped on this thing, it actually ended up looking like a pretty alright asset. I mean, I might talk to Cylinoid later. So we'll just cut this piece out. Just the ever perfect dynamic slice. And what we want to do is go and locate a driver and copy it and then paste it. Take this slice, paste its driver, and because none of these slices are being applied, we can still keep everything like super dynamic, which is the goal of this video, is to just show another way that you could be approaching this solenoid exercise, because I only showed you know, just kind of the level 1 way, and this is more like a preview of what the level 2 would be. I would like to do a dedicated solenoid video of a higher caliber later. And also, you know, I could press M right now and assign a material to this and not even have to deal with pressing Alt M afterwards. But because the material is shaded, and because the cutter is shaded red, you know, during the cut, I can't see what's going on. But continuing on, I'm gonna Shift D and then Control A, just convert this to geometry, and we're just going to just grab these pieces here, Control I, faces, and these faces are all that's left of this duplicate, and we'll just E, Alt S, and we'll just push that out. And of course, if you S sharp this, it will always catch these edges, because it's just too simple of geo. The angles are under 45, so it's better to just mark it manually, unless you want to change the S sharp parameters yourself, but I wouldn't, because as you see, I can just manually change all that through the Control tilde, and now we've created, you know, one of our little handles for this. So the next thing from here is we'll bring up the Control tilde helper, and first turn off metallicity. We'll make it red. Maybe give it a little bit of roughness. We'll turn on this clear coat, but we want to give it a certain amount of roughness. There we go. And also, you know, every time I make it this red, I'm like, too red. And then I have to darken it until I get something like that. Also, you know what I never did in the previous solenoids, and it just hit me, that would do great, is cutting something like this and then selecting this material and making it that. You know, I haven't done that in a while. It's just a little material accent. Like I said, this object is intended to be used for kit bashing purposes. So, you know, really the sky's the limit as far as where you can place these things. They kind of remind me of equipment I used to see in the oil field, but just kind of evolution of the shape exercises that I used to do previously. We're going to go in edit mode and select this curve with L and just delete it. Select these two pieces and just duplicate them over, and that'll work better for us. You know, we can also rotate it, duplicate it, rotate it, maybe once, maybe something like that. Maybe not even. You know, press and undo a bunch of times, really rolling the gambit of you know, if this is going to be a happy ending. However, I have to say that was kind of a fluid undo. So I'm going to press Shift D and press Control A and turn this geometry to mesh, just so I can put a loop cut here, bring it up, Control B, 3, jump into face mode, Control I, X, delete faces, and now I have this area of geometry that I can just pop out, and we'll just remove the sharpening from that, and of course sharpen this manually. And you're probably wondering why I even bother sharpening this kind of stuff manually. It's really just out of convenience, because like I said, I've done these over and over. So I've just found that changing edge sharp to work on 45 degrees instead of just adjusting the auto smooth here. It's just less work. But that reminds me that we do have a solution in the works that might be becoming a thing for that later. So, you know, every aspect of the pipeline is always under consideration for ways that it could improve. So if we just turn this into only the render, you can see that, you know, it's pretty, solenoid. You know, it's not the best solenoid ever. You know, I've seen more cylindrical solenoids, be honest, but also, you know, this isn't really that bad if you really get down to it. It's one of the few ones that you'll be able to roll the result down on like so, and take this thing down to its simplest form. And also we could right click to bring it back up to 48, and it's like bam, 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 bam. The solenoid plays a sound to let you know when someone's near. And we can also go in and still play with the curve settings of that hook to get the settings of this just right. But, you know, it doesn't have to be audio to be weird. It could just be like metal levels or radioactivity. You know, this thing detected so many levels of metal. And that's why, you know, Earth's in danger. And also I'm going to put one there so it shows through the crack. I just like the way it looks. And so, where do I want to go with this? I could just keep getting weird with the solenoid, or I can, you know, it'd be an interesting idea is I've never tried putting one of these hooks around one of these round parts on the solenoid. So let's actually do that. Easiest way to do that is to first see everything in the scene, and we'll just roll back until we get the absolute cylinder that made the shape that we're looking at. So I'm just rolling backwards. As you can see, a lot of cuts here, like 80 cuts. We're going to select this and snap the cursor here, and you know, surely there's an even easier way to handle that. So no, there is not. Shift D, Control A, visual transform. Then we add a loop, and then we press Control I. We look at this in top view. We can actually just grab the top of the circle using box select and bring this in. We'll Shift D over here. I know I just did not press F to fill that. All right. And voila. So we create our shape, but for this one, because there's so many bevels, I mean, so many vertices, we don't want to bevel those. So I'm just going to take this in local mode, and you can see me select this one, this one, this one, this one. And we're just going to bevel those to round it out. And then we'll convert it to a curve. And you can see with this shape that it's still a wire. So we can actually go and change that. I wonder why that's not an option there. I'm pretty sure visibility or viewport display used to be something that was there. Not really a deal breaker, but you know, I'll be definitely checking into that. Like I said, I'll go through and I'll make these sort of inserts over and over in order to make sure that, you know, the workflows are in place for it to be a successful operation. And also to try to mitigate the amount of comments and issues that I face. You know, nothing's better than seeing people able to successfully complete one of these demos without any sort of issue, because I was either a effective instructor or it was easy enough for them. So continuing on, we jump over to render and we see that, nothing's pretty anymore. So we'll just set something up real quick. Come out of full screen and we'll just select the world and pick an environment texture. Go under open and HDRI, SIBL. Let's see, which one am I liking? Stadium? No, that's a little too much green. Let's see, there's one I was looking at. It's not Subway, that one's a little orange, I think. Yeah, I remember it being too orange. And these HDRs that I'm looking through, these are all actually free on the SIBL archive. I've been using these things for years. I've always been able to find one that got me a pretty good result. So, I mean, right here, if I don't even want to see the environment, I could go over to shading and go over to world. And we can just, replace one of these HDRIs with a blurred version. So I'll just do that in this just for the sake of an example. We'll use a shader, mix shader. We'll throw in a, was it light? No, light path. And we want to make camera ray the factor. And plug up our blurred world. And there's some other things I can do here as well that would make the shadows a little more prominent, but for the type of model that we're making and the type of render that we're going for, none of that sort of stuff is going to be needed. In fact, from here, we can actually turn on some refraction, hit the bloom, and play with our threshold. Nope. In fact, our threshold's fine. Let's select this object that is our green affection, our glowing green affection. Boy, I cannot select it. Let's get in there and select it. There we go. We'll just give this a good hot number, like 60. Bam. Real hot. Heated. And that's what we have in look dev. And this is what we have in render. So, look dev is always usually my final destination, just because I like the results that I get here. So we let our solenoid play out, and this is kind of what we have here. Just bam, bam. Oh, snap. I saw some really high numbers show up there. I saw it. I know I saw it. I'm holding shift so that I can press spacebar the moment I see one of those heaters fly over the plate. I'm not a baseball fan or anything, with all these baseball terms. I just, I played a little bit as a kid. It was terrible. In fact, I was so terrible at Little League Baseball. I was about as terrible as I am at adult Smash Bros. So, what really topped this thing off, besides me accidentally clicking and making stray shapes, is selecting circle. And let's select the right shape for one and turn on our ability to see what we select. We'll just put a circle right there. Just circle, but not any circle. Hexagon, me, can't do one of these without a hexagon being added. Not trying to represent the hexagon or anything, but just a nice little sci-fi accent to add to any asset this holiday season. If you want to show your holiday cheer, give your friends a hex pattern. So something like that would look cool. And then we give it some thickness so it keeps its internal sections back. But let's think about this. Do we want that? Does it look better like that? That does look cooler. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Watch, I'm gonna have a bunch of comments of people saying that this is the worst looking solenoid. But you know what? I love it. I love this solenoid. You know, I'd make it some lunches for its first day of school. So we let this play, and it's like, hello, I am a solenoid, and I am here. I don't know why. Oh God, I saw it. Right there. Right there. We can't let that happen, you guys. You know, if I let that kind of crime make it in Gotham City. Didn't I have an animation tab? You know, we won't talk about the animation tab, but I'm pretty sure that was part of the other Zack Snyder universe. Alright, and we select this one right here, and under modifiers, and we bring that limit way down. They think they can throw such heaters over the plate. And now things are looking good. So, you know, this video is like an hour and 5 minutes, and that's with me kind of just talking about some of the new things that are going on in BoxCutter. I mean, I'll probably do like a proper ad and everything, you know, with the washes, whatnot, and also kind of a recap on what's going on with hard ops. But for the most part, I'm planning on just updating documentation with that. I've been really trying to get on top of that, so that way new users have a good starting and jumping off point, as well as opening up for other people to kind of get involved with those paths as well. Also, you know what this needs is like some sort of glass controlling, covering this up, because it's just like exposed to LED light. So, you know, I don't have a PhD in glass or anything. I'm not a physicist, but we'll just put a plane here and bring this out right there. We'll just bring that up, and that will be our class. Call this class. Maybe not so loud though. So something like that. We'll jump over to shading, and I'm gonna proceed to make the worst glass ever. I could be using chip glass or something like that. However, I'm not. I'm just going to, you know, I've just been experimenting with even lazier glass. Like sometimes I just go off the reservation for things. Where is it? Transparent BSDF. And, you know, any sort of glass snob will tell you to start putting IORs and playing with Fresnel. But in my case, I am just going to put that there, turn on screen space refraction, make sure it's mirrored to the bottom. And it's just a little bit heavier to process, but at least now we'll have that illusion of being covered up. What else do we want to do before we wrap this up? Or do I want to just leave an hour and 8 minutes? Leave it at that and come back and revisit this idea tomorrow. Probably that one. I did have a very specific solenoid I wanted to show you guys. I didn't even get to show how to really use the control geometry here in this example, because it kind of just controlled itself. I mean, we pause this thing, we look at it. Looks pretty good. I think that will do it for this particular video. However, I will select this main solenoid and we'll jump the segments up to 128, which is going to break down some of the shading in certain areas, or it won't, and everything will just look good. So, oh no, here we go. So right here, there are some issues. So when it comes to resolving these sort of things, I mean, probably the easiest way is to just find a boolean that is causing all the pain. So if we go to layer 2, we unhide everything. We have this, which I think is very transparent and easy to recognize. Just kidding. But we could find precisely the cutter we need. Maybe. Actually, I'm beginning to have my doubts. Nope. What am I having doubts for? Found it. I'm the best. No, I'm kidding. But I was wondering about that. In fact, let's see. We got it up here. But we need to adjust this one. And we see that adjusting that one is a little bit slower than the second one. But if we can get things just nitpicked enough, just enough to work with 128, we will have a fantastic solenoid. And the other thing is that, you know, if we select the main piece right here, and we go in here and say go to the modifier panel, we can actually copy, say, this driver. Copy driver. We just paste it into the render. Go here. That object is plain. You never want to mess with its drivers. Paste driver. I mean, it sucks to you know, have to do this for all your objects. So someday, I mean, my driver magician idea will come to fruition, and that will be one of the systems that will be helping manage all this sort of madness in the future. But by doing this, it at least ensures that the render will be exactly what I want it to be, which in this case, I want it to be exactly what I set it on the main object, with the circulars also adjusting proportionately. So it's not absolutely necessary, since most of the shots I do are rendered just like this whenever I'm showing them off. But let's just let this play out one more time, just so you guys know what I'm saying. It's like, hey guys, Master Xeon here. You're watching Cylinoids on BoxCutter TV. You know, sometimes I forget which branding I'm using for the TV idea. But with that, you know, I'll just wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Is there a fly in here? No, I think it's my hair in front of my eyes. All right, I'm out of here.